This is Smiles TV. I'm Stephanie Anthony Miles, and welcome to the best community affairs broadcast in the country. Today, we will chat with retired Judge Milton Wharton, who was on the bench for 35 years, and as a matter of fact, he just told me 36 years. And he was known for giving speeches and life advice to defendants. In 1988, Judge Wharton, along with the late Gary Treatman and concerned foster parents, recognized the need to address lost children in the juvenile and foster care system. And now, because of Judge Milton Wharton's compassion and diligence, we have an organization which was started off in St. Clair County. It's a nationwide organization, but he started a branch in St. Clair County first. And now it is CASA, C-A-S-A, of Southwestern Illinois. This judge has received well over 75 public service and community awards. After the break, you will meet Judge Milton Wharton, and we will welcome him to Smiles TV. Remember, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. He died for our sins according to the scriptures. He was buried and rose on the third day according to the scriptures. Confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus. Believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and thou shalt be saved. Stay tuned for more Smiles. Welcome back to Smiles TV. I'm sitting here with Judge Milton Wharton. Judge Wharton, thank you for coming to Smiles Television. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
No, it is such an honor to sit here and talk with you. I've just, we've wanted you on our broadcast for a long time. You may not know this. And so I think it was Terrence Taylor and Stephanie Bush are the ones who suggested that we do an interview, and I'm just grateful to them. So I'm going to give a shout out to Community Development Sustainable Solutions for even encouraging us to do this broadcast. You're doing well, aren't you, sir?
Doing well, honored to be here.
Yes, sir. So let's go with a little background, and we'll get into CASA and what's coming up in April, because I understand there's a big month coming up that we're going to talk about. But you're from East St. Louis, Illinois.
Right, grew up just off of 12th and Baker, attended Lincoln Senior High School, attended initially SIU at Everettsville in East St. Louis in the old East St. Louis High School building.
A lot of people don't know that SIU was in East St. Louis, that's right.
That is correct. So I've had a lot of education in East St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then later on, I went to law school in Chicago at DePaul University and eventually came back here.
Well, first of all, went to Lincoln, and then we honor all those who went to Lincoln. I'm a flyer, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yes, let's leave it at that.
Let's talk about this. What made you, first of all, want to even go into law?
Well, I always had a feeling of wanting to do something more than just be a participant in society, to contribute something. And I had a great role model and an idol who was the late Judge Billy Jones,
right.
The eminent civil rights attorney who did so much to spur equality within East St. Louis. And I think if I can say any one thing that made me want to go into law, it was Judge Billy Jones. Now, I'm a Kappa Alpha Psi. He was an Alpha, a very proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha, but all those things are insignificant. I love Judge Jones, and I haven't met anyone with a pure heart and a more dedicated concern for the welfare of all people, not just black people. He literally dedicated his life to that effort.
Wow. And I know some of the struggles I had growing up in East St. Louis. I know some of the great things that happened while growing up in East St. Louis. What would you say are some of the main things that helped you along the way that you might have learned at home?
Well, I was raised in a household of my father and my grandmother. My grandmother never had a day of formal education in her life, but boy, was she smart. And I first learned the difference between education and intelligence. She was a super intelligent woman with a great deal of earthly wisdom that she tried to impart on me. Like this morning, I was laughing about her to my daughter who's home for spring break, and she said, you know, Dad, you always told me that your grandmother, a very religious person, always told you that you should always look forward to maybe being called when you don't expect it. And I'm talking about the call by the man. She always said, you're sick enough to die on your wellest day. And it's no more truthful statement than that. Anything can happen, even though you're in picture perfect health.
Right.
Something can happen. But I think her influence and my father's strong influence and my mother's, who was a participant even though I didn't live in her household.
Okay, and how many children do you have?
I have one daughter.
One daughter, and your wife is?
My wife is Patricia Wharton. She recently retired as an attorney.
How wonderful.
Thank you.
So in reading your bio, and it was just evident the compassion and discipline you had as a judge. And that's what sparked your mind to get involved with CASA. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I served for many years as the juvenile court judge, just like your friend Judge Walter Brandon did, and he did an excellent job. During my tenure, I became aware of the fact that many times children do not have an advocate who can strongly, basically push for them to be put in a position where they can realize their full potential. And this is sort of the purpose of CASA, which was initiated actually in 1977 by a judge in Seattle, Washington, who noticed the same thing, that maybe the information that he wasn't receiving was inadequate to make the decisions that he had to make that were impacting the lives of children. So he came up with the right idea of having volunteers come in and be trained as advocates for children and as friends of children to basically be the eyes and ears of the court.
Okay.
And that's the beginning of CASA. And our CASA here is a branch of that national organization.
Okay, and it started, what year did it start in St. Clair County?
We're over 30 years old.
Over 30 years old. Okay, and the acronyms stand for?
Court Appointed Special Advocate.
Did you see a lot of cases serving as judge that just really tore at your heart?
I can give you a litany of cases that tore at my heart. I recall one specific one. It involved a very beautiful young African-American girl. I think she was maybe 6 years old. And she was placed in foster care in a group home. And unfortunately, there were other young kids there who were abusers. And one of the individuals stuck a pool cue up her vagina. Now, these things happen not because necessarily of any negligence of the social workers who were overworked, underpaid, and understaffed, but because there was no one there to really be an individual advocate for this child and make sure that a thing like this did not happen. And that's the idea of CASA, is to have an individual be the best friend of a child who's in the system to make sure that the child is protected, and also that the hardships and deprivations that come with being removed from a home are lessened. And we have individuals who don't recognize their own resources. I mean, they have training that they're not aware of. They have fortitude. They have life experiences that could immeasurably increase the success of children who are in foster care and children who have to come into the court system, unfortunately. One of the major attributes of our program is the child develops a working relationship with someone who is special in their lives and who they trust. One of the more taxing experiences for a child is to have to come into court and testify. And to feel, I'm in here with all these grown people, I don't know them, but to have that special friend there as fortitude is just a tremendous asset to make them want to tell their story.
Coming up in April, Tell us about the month of April and what are we entering into?
We are emphasizing something that goes on all 12 months, and that is the horrors of child abuse and neglect.
Okay.
Many times we look at criminal justice, for instance, and we say, oh, this guy's a criminal or whatever. I can almost guarantee you that almost every person who winds up in the criminal justice system was at one point in their time of their lives abused or neglected.
Wow.
So here we are hoping that we can emphasize the need for volunteers. We have 190 kids right now in our 3-county area who are waiting for volunteers, CASA volunteers who can assist them while they're in the court system. With this added emphasis, hopefully people will become more aware of how broad the issue of child abuse is and neglect, and maybe spur them to be more willing to come and be involved. Now, there are all kinds of levels of involvement. If you can't be a volunteer, you can contribute money.
Okay.
And help
we'll
us.
accept dollars.
We'll accept dollars.
Yes, sir. People can come in, they can volunteer, they can donate money, and the children need their help. And as Judge Wharton says, everybody needs an advocate, you know. So if you're interested in being a volunteer, and if this has pulled at your heartstrings, support CASA. Are there any statements or anything that you would like to share that we didn't touch on?
Well, one of the things I'd like to call attention to is, and you have already broached the subject, in our society, we state that we're concerned about children, but I guarantee you that most of the efforts that directly impact positively the lives of children will be with the involvement of volunteers, underpaid staff many times, and what's indispensable is women. And you'll see that over and over again in anything that involves children. So our organization, I mentioned maybe the foundation of it involving the Belleville Foster Parent Association, which was headed by Mr. Gary Trentman, who unfortunately is deceased. He also was the first president of CASA. The women in our county were instrumental in making this thing go.
Okay.
They got out and they raised the money, and they were the people who originally staffed the organization, and still women are very prominent in our organization. So I just want to give a shout out to the concerned women who have meant so much, not just to CASA, but to abused and neglected children in our 3-county area.
Yes, sir. And I'm just so honored, as I said, that you decided to come and share with us on SMilesTV. And I try to ask most of my guests, if you get the opportunity, will you come back?
I would love to come back.
Now, he's a judge, he's an attorney, and he's on camera. And he said he would love to come, and we would love to have you back. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you so very much.
And we were just so honored to have our wonderful guest, Judge Milton Wharton, retired Judge Milton Wharton. And don't forget, volunteers are needed. Donations are needed. Children need your help. You can go to the CASA website at www.casawil.org. That's www.casawil.org. Support CASA. Support the children. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more smiles. When you visit Big Mama's in East St. Louis, Illinois, located at 5900 St. Clair Avenue, you will need a fork and a bib. Big Mama's is known for their barbecue, cakes, excellent service, and giving back to the community. Call in, eat in, drive through, carry out, order for your office. You can call Big Mama's at 618-398-8950 or visit 5900 St. Clair Avenue in East St. Louis, Illinois.
Hi, my name is Sterling Moody. I'm the owner of Neighbors Market, 1005 North 15th Street, on the Echo Jazz building across from Emerson Park Metrolink stop. We have fresh barbecue Friday and Saturdays. We have Sunday through Saturday, open from 7 to 7. Look forward to seeing you in the store.
and welcome to another one of your What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des. How you doing? I'm Dr. Desarie Holmes, your resident psychologist, and we have an amazing show again today. And so we have a wonderful, outstanding, brilliant guest. He is a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and an unbelievable psychiatrist, Dr. Randy Young. So let's welcome Dr. Randy Young to What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des. Yay, Dr. Young. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for inviting me to your program.
Very good. Dr. Young, I am so happy that you were able to come to the show. You are an outstanding and well-established psychiatrist in this area. Please give us a brief background on you and what you do. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been educated largely in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and I went to nursing school at Maryville College at that time, and got my associate's degree there, and a bachelor's degree from SIU Carbondale in biology, and a master's degree from SIU Edwardsville. Then I completed my medical school training at the SIU in Springfield, Illinois. And went ahead and did my internship and residency in general psychiatry at St. Louis University, and went ahead and did another year of geriatric psychiatry fellowship training, and after that I did 4 years of additional training at the St. Louis Psychoanalytic Institute in adult psychoanalysis, and another 2 years of training in child-adolescent psychoanalysis. And I've been working in the St. Louis metropolitan area in a variety of different venues, both inpatient and outpatient.
So as you can see, our viewing audience, that Dr. Young is just a plethora, yes, I said plethora, of wealth of knowledge and information, and that's why you're on this show. Because again, I always say on this show, one of the things that What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des, what we do is educating the community. We want to put out information and dispel misinformation. We want to dispel the myth on mental illness so that people are not fearful of it, that they receive the necessary and proper help and treatment, that they can go on to live productive lives even with the diagnosis of having an illness. And so today I want to get right into the heart of why you're here. Inpatient psychiatric treatment. Tell our audience exactly what is a psychiatric inpatient unit. What does that look like?
It's a part of generally of a hospital unit where, like any other ward in a hospital, you have doctors and nurses. You'll have nurses stations that are a part of that. Probably the biggest physical plant difference that is noticed is that when a person enters the unit, there's a heightened level of security. And it will be a level of security more familiar to what you might see at a labor and delivery ward, where the additional security is provided for the safety of patients. Another important difference that might be noted is that the patients there are wearing, in general, their street clothes rather than wearing their hospital gowns and all. And but aside from that, it will look physically much like many other inpatient units. You might see patients be more in general areas, a day room of some sort, a multi-purpose room, rather than being so sequestered to their own rooms. They tend to come out more and socialize with one another as well as with the staff.
Right. So when a person is being admitted to an inpatient psychiatric unit, again, people have all of these myths and people are terrified, and I don't want people to think I'm crazy, or I don't want to be locked up. They're going to lock me up and I'm not going to be able to leave. Let's talk about that. Share with our audience exactly, so there's the treatment, and explain to them what that treatment typically consists of if you've been admitted to an inpatient unit.
Typically what will happen is that a person will undergo an initial evaluation by the nursing staff. And that's just to get a general idea of the person's overall health. of past medical, surgical history. They may have had little something about their past mental health history, if any, and to get an idea what medications they might be on and how that might influence some of the decision making and the diagnoses that go forward with treating that individual. A lot of times there'll be lab work that will be done prior to seeing the psychiatrist, and certain sets of labs will be drawn, urine samples will be collected, as happens in so many other units in a hospital. And then what will occur is that the patient will usually or commonly meet with a psychiatrist, and will meet anywhere from a half hour, 45 minutes for an initial evaluation, and then going forward from there they'll have a variety of treatment interventions, activities therapy, group therapy, classroom instruction. They'll have sometimes instruction about the pharmaceuticals that might be used in the hospital inpatient psychiatric unit. And the ordinary length of stay tends to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 7 days. For some it's a little less, for others it's a little longer. But in general, that's how the program will run for most people.
And so typically the types of admissions that you see, what are some of the more typical admissions?
We'll see people more commonly with depression. Sometimes they may have bipolar disorder. There are a few patients we'll see with schizophrenia. But in general, many people are presenting with a mental illness that is disturbing their capacity to cope with some acute stressor in their life. There may have been the death of a close family member or friend. There might be a situation arise where a person has undergone a loss, like in a divorce, or they're trying to cope with even successful losses when an adult child moves away from home, or when they're trying to come to terms with delivering a baby, or dealing with the loss of a job, or even the start of a new job sometimes. And within the context of mental illness, many times that impairs the person's ordinary resiliency, where ordinarily they'd have been able to have answered that crisis. But when you have the mental illness superimposed, that becomes more problematic.
Again, you are laying some wonderful information on our viewers, and I really hope that people are really listening and paying attention, because again, I always say, and I stress, that there is life after a diagnosis of mental illness, and an inpatient psychiatric admission does not mean that that is the end of your life. In fact, for some people, it can be the beginning of a renewed life. So Dr. Young, so I want to touch on that. Since you brought it up, I want to touch on briefly that people do come onto an inpatient psychiatric unit with also substance abuse. Talk to our audience about what that may also look like in terms of treatment, because then you have the mental illness as well as the substance abuse.
When it comes to substance abuse, probably the most concerning would be when a person is withdrawing from alcohol or withdrawing from benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, because those withdrawal syndromes can result in a very serious withdrawal seizure that many times results in death. And so it's very important for those detoxes to occur in the context of a hospital. Or at least most commonly it's done there in the most safe venue possible. Other kinds of addictions, such as in our war with opioids, such as heroin, fentanyl, and narcotic pain pills, the withdrawal syndrome there, it's not typically lethal. However, it's much more agonal, and sometimes in a desperate move to try to end the detox, the person will unwittingly take a lethal dose of the opioid, and so when they come into the hospital, they can oftentimes receive treatment of one form or another to be detoxed off of the opiate, or to get that detox launched well, where they can work with substances like Suboxone. Sometimes they can work with methadone, or some will prefer just to have comfort meds administered to take the edge off of some of the severe withdrawal symptoms, so that they can get off of the opioids as quickly as they can possibly arrange.
Okay. Coming from a board certified psychiatrist with all of this information, and I want you to really express to our audience that there is life and hope after a diagnosis.
Certainly. I think regrettably what we find too often occurring is that people think that mental illness shouldn't be happening. The probability that a person is going to get through life without mental illness is about the same probability that they'll lead a full life and never have a physical illness. And just like with physical illness, on occasion, some may need hospitalization or may benefit from hospitalization. Two different populations, oftentimes substantial overlap, but many times people will benefit from inpatient hospitalization and get launched into an excellent outpatient program.
Excellent.
Or else they may emerge from an outpatient program of treatment. But with the presence of that mental illness, if they have a superimposed crisis or loss of some type, their capacity for resiliency can be reinforced with the modalities available at an inpatient psychiatric ward.
And we're going to leave on that note. Wonderfully said. I couldn't have said it any more beautifully. Dr. Young, thank you again for being a guest here on What's on Your Mind with Dr. Des, where we are here transforming lives and renewing minds. And so thank you for being with us again today here with Smiles TV with Stephanie Anthony Miles.
Thank you for watching Smiles TV. We had a dynamic show. Tune into Smiles as often as you can. We're on the P. Chapman Network, which is a national network started by Pam Chapman. She was the first African-American news director for the state of Mississippi. And you can catch us on there. You can catch us on Dynasty Television. Remember, only what you do for Christ will last. Keep smiling. You look better when you smile, and Jesus is the Lord. The Lord be magnified.
The Smiles Television Talk Show wants to showcase your business, organization, church, and activities. If you have an interest in being a guest on Smiles Television Talk Show, or if you have any show ideas, contact Stephanie Anthony Miles at smilestv777@gmail.com. You may also call 618-741-3770. Tell your friends to subscribe to the Smiles YouTube channel. Let Smiles TV increase your reach. Remember, you look better with smiles. IDEX Media does a lot. From IDEX Photography to IDEX Films. We help create forever memories and forever impressions. Image a nation, image a world. IDEX Media.
Awesome sauce. Yeah, baby.